If you know Long John Silver's, it's probably because you like heavily fried seafood. Recently, however, this floundering maritime giant decided to try climbing out of the ocean by pivoting from chicken of the sea to chicken of the land, or as it's more commonly known, chicken. Which is why today we're taking a look at what happens when a seafood restaurant wants to be a chicken place. But before we get started, be sure to subscribe to the Weird History Food channel. After that, please leave a comment and let us know what other fast food rebrands you'd like to hear more about. Okay, now hold on to your nose, because we're about to dive in. The Long John Silver story starts in 1929, when Jerome Lederer opened the White Tavern Shop hamburger stand in Louisville, Kentucky. Despite it being, the beginning of the Great Depression, Jerome made it a success and soon opened 12 additional locations. He probably thought the Depression was the biggest problem he'd ever face, but then World War II said, "Hold my beer." Suddenly, Lederer was facing supply chain problems and work shortages as his beef got rationed and his young employees were sent off to the front. Those challenges forced him to close all but 2 of his restaurants, which just goes to prove that war truly is hell. Undeterred, in 1957, Lederer started another chain, this time more intuitively named Jerry's Five and Dime. The restaurant would take off, quickly expanding to multiple locations and becoming simply Jerry's, a staple of 60s and 70s Kentucky dining. Bored with just burgers, Lederer then toyed with more diverse menu theming, experimenting with options like roast beef and Spanish food. Sadly, in 1963, Jerry himself departed for that big diner in the sky, and the company was taken over by his business associate and close personal friend Warren W. Rosenthal. Cronyism. It's a sweet deal if you can finagle it. Anyway, Rosenthal seems to have also inherited Lederer's habit of tinkering with menus to find untapped markets. In 1969, he got together with Jerry's franchisee Jim Patterson to hash out a new business idea. Fast food was still the hot new trend, and the duo had noticed there were no major players in the burgeoning industry who were highlighting seafood options. McDonald's may have been the rising star, but the Filet-O-Fish notwithstanding, they were right to notice that not everyone wants a hamburger all the time.
Had your fill of tacos? Would ye sooner eat a bilge rat than another burger?
Once the idea was in place, they considered several names for their new endeavor, including Limeys, presumably rejected for being too hurtful to British people.
What?
And Barnacle Bills, presumably rejected for being too hurtful to barnacles.
Barnacles!
They eventually settled on Long John Silver's. If this video is your first experience with media of any kind, then you might not be familiar with Long John Silver, the famous fictional pirate from the classic 1883 novel Treasure Island by Robert Louis Stevenson. In fact, you know how peg legs and pet parrots are traditional pirate signifiers? Well, that's because Long John had a peg leg and a pet parrot. He enters the tale disguised as a simple ship's cook, but spoilers for a 143-year-old novel, after some shenanigans involving a secret treasure map and a small mutiny, he reveals himself to be the infamous pirate. In short, this double-dealing scoundrel is quite literally the ideal of the swashbuckler. The novel has been frequently adapted for movies and TV, with over 50 versions having hit screens both big and small. That means a lot of actors have taken a stab at playing Long John, including Orson Welles and Charlton Heston. Perhaps the most memorable is Tim Curry, playing the role with particular swagger alongside fellow acting legends like Kermit the Frog and Fozzie Bear in the seminal classic Muppet Treasure Island. The first Long John Silver's restaurant opened on August 18, 1969 in Lexington, Kentucky. Keeping with its nautical name, the original location sported a Cape Cod shack-style exterior and blue shingle roof. Inside was even more maritime theming. Wooden walkways lined with rope, seats painted like signal flags, and brass ship's lamps. The only thing missing was a surly fisherman chain-smoking out front, and given that this was the late 60s, there was probably one around too. The first restaurant opened with a menu of just a few items. fried fish, french fries, hush puppies,
If anything appears to be moving, that's just freshness.
and, notable for our story later, fried chicken. Somewhat shockingly, this early fare would be marketed as a lighter alternative to the ubiquitous burger. Their tagline was literally, a lighter lunch. You have to remember, this was the late 60s, when a healthy option might be a savory Jell-O mold with shrimp in it, and a cigarette recommended to you by your doctor. As it turned out, Rosenthal and Patterson were spot on in their reading of fast food-crazed America's hunger for more options. Early on, they even added a staple gimmick to all their locations, a ship's bell placed by the exit that customers were encouraged to ring if they liked their experience. And throughout the 70s, people were definitely ringing that bell. The chain saw major success and steady expansion. People just couldn't get enough of that greasy, greasy seafood. The menu would then expand to include more options, like shrimp and clams.
Shrimply delicious!
Still battered and fried, of course. By 1980, they had around 1,000 locations in the US, marking them as a serious competitor. In 1983, they opened their first international location in Singapore, which still boasts the most locations outside of the US today. Truly, the appeal of deep-fried seafood knows no borders. That's probably why in 1984, the company reported $451 million in sales, which would be around $1.4 billion in 2026 money. That's a lot of chum. They also claimed roughly 65% of the entire fast fish market that year, so they were thoroughly dominating their competition, beating out less well-known nautical-themed seafood options like Captain D's and Arthur Treacher's. And don't even get us started on how good their business was every year during Lent. It was, in fact, so good that some canny marketers came up with the idea to send coupon booklets to Catholic churches to hand out to their parishioners. Good Friday? More like Good Fish Friday. Huh?
I'm so sorry.
All right, let's keep this train wreck moving.
If there's one lesson we can learn from the Titanic, it's that Celine Dion is a Canadian icon. If there's another one, though, it's that even the biggest ship can still sink. Despite riding high in the 80s, as the go-go 90s rolled in, things took a turn for Long John Silver's. Other companies had added their own popular seafood items to their menus.
Burger King brings back the whaler.
So people who wanted a fast fried fish fix could and were getting it from other places. Furthermore, after decades of Spam and Twinkies, many Americans were finally becoming more concerned with the health of the food they were eating. And Long John Silver's wasn't exactly drawing in the salad crowd with their battered and fried options. With sales declining and a now unwieldy 1,500 locations, they just couldn't keep up with the aggressive rate of expansion the company had established in the 80s. By 1998, it seemed like the struggling brand was bound for Davy Jones' locker. With around $454 million of debt and only $329 million in assets, Long John Silver was badly in the red, and they were forced to declare bankruptcy. For the first time, but not the last, it looked like the company was going under. Valuation aside, Long John Silver's was still a recognizable brand. And at the 11th hour, the A&W company swooped in and bought the restaurant chain from bankruptcy. Never underestimate the power of root beer. In partnership with Tricon Global, later known as Yum Brands, they would go the combo route, opening locations that featured a Long John Silver's alongside some combination of KFC, Pizza Hut, and Taco Bell. It was the same strategy they were trying with their own A&W stores. Shockingly, however, consumers' issues with Long John Silver's were not fixed by the option to get a Taco Supreme with your fish and chips, and no one was Kieroing Moss. As the 2000s arrived, the company was still struggling. A&W gave up the ghost in 2002, selling fully to Yum Brands, though they would later sue their former business partners, claiming they failed to properly support the combo stores in favor of their own brand's standalone locations. The original Long John Silver probably would have just murdered them and taken his loot, but they opted to send in the lawyers.
A pirate? Well, that's hardly the image we want for Long John Silver's.
Yum would wash their hands of the affair by selling the company again in 2011. This time, things were a little different though, as the buyer was not another massive conglomerate, but instead LJS Partners, a group of franchise owners and investors, including Jim Patterson's children. Would the Patterson heirs be able to right the ship their father had once sailed so successfully? No, they would not. Instead, the most noticeable legacy of this turnover seems to be that current official company history somewhat conspicuously only credits Jim Patterson with the founding of Long John Silver's. There's no mention anywhere of Lederer or Rosenthal. Seems a little fishy, don't you think? The 2010s would see more declining sales, more store closures, and no end in sight. You could say the wind was fully out of their sails. Why? Well, the growth of fast casual counter service restaurants like Chipotle, with their focus on fresh ingredients, appealed to a health-conscious market that Long John's was still ignoring. They just could not get over their addiction to the fryer, no matter how many interventions popular culture sent their way. In 2013, for example, the Center for Science in the Public Interest named Long John Silver's Big Catch Meal Deal, a plate of fried fish, hush puppies, and onion rings, as the worst restaurant meal in America, which is really saying something.
If you want a prescription for heart disease, you don't have to look any further than the Big Catch at Long John Silver's.
Clocking in at a stomach-walloping 1,320 calories and packed with trans fats and sodium, you can kind of see their point. With things still looking bleak in 2014, LJS Partners were about ready to give up and tried fishing for a new buyer for the brand. But this time, there would be no nibbles for 8 years. The chain had one final, as of now, sale in November of 2022 to the Four Oaks Group, an investment group headed up by Silver's franchisee Bob Jenkins. Hey, what's one more change in leadership, right? Ultimately, Long John Silver's was sunk by a number of factors. Chief amongst them was their unshakable reputation as a particularly unhealthy option. They would make a final attempt to address these concerns by adding some grilled items to the menu in 2015, but the rollout was only partial, and it was too little, too late. Their success in the 80s proved a double-edged sword, as when the business started to decline, they had far too many locations that weren't seeing enough sales to survive. On top of all of that, their frequent changes in ownership were another issue that dogged the brand. With them came constant shakeups in the C-suite, and with that, inconsistent management strategies. It's hard to succeed when your company is like a briny version of Succession.
Oh, f*** off.
What was once 1,500 stores globally is today down to 486, and only 387 of those are in the US. Think of all those nautical-themed decorations languishing in garbage dumps across the country. It's enough to make you cry. It might seem like the battle is over, but Long John Silver's clearly believes there's still some powder in their cannons yet. In October 2025, the chain suddenly unveiled a new logo, where a bright yellow fish had been the centerpiece for years. This new logo featured instead a bright yellow chicken. Alongside the new look came a slightly new name, Long John Silver's Chicken and Fish. In the announcement, current Senior Vice President of Marketing and Innovation, Christopher Caudill, said guests have been telling us for years that our chicken is a best-kept secret. They're now hoping to spoil that secret by highlighting a long-existing but underappreciated menu item they call chicken planks. These chicken fingers, by another name, are white meat tenders coated with the same thick, crispy batter as their fish, and then, you guessed it, deep fried. They've been on the menu since the 70s.
Chicken at Long John's?
But instead of an oddity, they'll now be featured by the restaurant front and center. Current chicken offerings include 2 and 3-piece chicken meals, a fish and chicken platter, and a fish, chicken, and shrimp platter. If you're one of the few remaining longtime fans, don't worry, there'll still be plenty of seafood on the menu. The chain, however, seems dedicated to seeing where this new course can take them. Their flagship Nashville location has begun testing more chicken-based menu items, including Nashville hot chicken and seafood, and chicken tortilla wraps featuring their signature crunchies, a secret menu item made of the little bits of crispy fry batter left over from frying the fish. Maybe left over from frying the chicken now? Who knows? They've even shown off photos of the new logo already gracing their sponsored NASCAR racer, because with the height of their success coming in the 1980s, of course they have a sponsored NASCAR racer. In the official words of LJS, chicken is also part of our heritage and a big part of our future, so it deserves its rightful place on our logo, our menu, and our guests' tables. There's evidence to support that confidence. We all remember the pandemonium over the release of the Popeyes chicken sandwich. According to a consumer survey conducted by the National Cattlemen's Beef Association in 2024, chicken is the most popular protein in the United States. And if even the beef lobbyists are admitting to it, then the evidence must be truly undeniable. MSN's reporting on the new direction states, early indicators suggest that the rebrand is generating positive buzz and increased foot traffic at test locations. If these trends continue, it looks like Long John may just be replacing his parrot with a different kind of poultry. If you decide to go check out their chicken for yourself, maybe stop by on September 19th. That's National Talk Like a Pirate Day. And if you give them your best pirate impression, they'll hook you up with some free grub. Seriously, looking back on their history, they might as well embrace this new direction. It's not like their reputation could get much worse. And stranger things have happened than people buying their chicken from a fisherman. If they really want to stay on theme, though, we recommend they consider changing their name to Henry Morgan's. That's one last bad joke for all the pirate fans out there. Yar. So what do you think? Can Long John Silver's pivot to poultry, or has their ship long since set sail? Let us know in the comments below, and while you're at it, check out some of these other videos from Weird History Food.